the hottest team in baseball walked into the Bronx on an 8-game winning streak, fresh off dismantling nearly everyone in their path since the All-Star break, and by the time they walked back out, that streak was dead. Their ace had been out-dueled, and the New York Yankees had already locked up the series before the final game was even played. This wasn't a quiet, forgettable weekend of baseball. This was two genuinely thrilling, dramatic ballgames, a Cy Young showdown, a rain-delayed extra-innings classic, and a rookie continuing to look like exactly the kind of player this organization has been waiting years to find. So let's break down everything that happened, game by game, player by player, because this series deserves the full treatment. Quick thing before we dive in, if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe, because we cover exactly these kinds of in-depth breakdowns of the Bronx Bombers all season long. Real analysis, no fluff, just what actually happened and why it matters. Tap subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's get into it. Let's start with Friday night, because this game alone would have been worth an entire video on its own. Max Fried took the mound against his former team for the very first time in his career, the same Atlanta Braves organization that developed him across 8 major league seasons before he left in free agency to sign a massive 8-year deal with New York. There's real weight in a moment like that. A pitcher standing 60 feet 6 inches away from the exact franchise that shaped his entire career. And Fry didn't just handle the occasion, he dominated it. 6 1/3 scoreless innings, 3 hits allowed, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, 90 pitches of poise against a lineup that knew him better than almost any other opponent in baseball could. But here's the thing about Friday night. Fried wasn't even the best story on the mound. Opposite him, making his very first start in an Atlanta uniform after getting traded from San Francisco just days earlier, Tyler Mahle turned in one of the most remarkable debut performances in recent Braves history. 6 full scoreless innings, 92 pitches, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 9 strikeouts, tying his season high. According to the record books, that's the most strikeouts by a Braves pitcher in 6+ scoreless innings in a debut in franchise history. Think about that for a second. A brand new arrival, thrown into a hostile road environment against a genuine playoff contender, delivering a performance that instantly etched his name into the team record books before he'd even worn the uniform a full week. So, with both starters matching zeros deep into the game. This one turned into exactly the kind of pitcher's duel that makes baseball purists fall in love with the sport all over again. And then the bullpens took over, and Atlanta looked like they were about to steal it. Austin Riley went deep in the 8th inning, Matt Olson followed with a home run of his own in the 9th, and suddenly New York was down 2 runs, with their 8-game winning streak opponent seemingly about to extend that streak to 9 straight. Down to their very last out. That's when Austin Wells, who'd been mired in a genuine slump, delivered a double that scored a run and kept the game alive. From there, Ain Rosario drew a walk, and Ben Rice ripped a game-tying single off the right field fence with 2 outs, sending this thing into extra innings. In the 10th, Ryan McMahon delivered the finishing blow, a sacrifice fly that brought home the winning run and completed one of the more dramatic late-inning comebacks this Yankees team has produced all season. Final score, 3-2, in a game that didn't wrap up until after midnight thanks to a weather delay, and it snapped Atlanta's 8-game winning streak in the most gut-punching way possible for the visiting team. Now let's move to Saturday, because if Friday was about a walk-off style comeback, Saturday was about pure star power squaring off directly. This was billed as one of the marquee pitching matchups of the entire season, and it absolutely lived up to the hype. Gerrit Cole against Chris Sale, 2 Cy Young Award winners going head-to-head on Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium. And in this one, Cole simply won the battle. He pitched 7 strong innings, genuinely dominant, outdueling Sale in a game that had real statement game energy from the opening pitch. Sale didn't pitch poorly by any means. This was still a legitimate ace on the mound, but the Braves' offense couldn't quite generate enough support around him. Atlanta actually grabbed a 2-1 lead in the fifth inning, stringing together a couple of doubles followed by run-scoring singles from Mahle and a teammate. But New York answered right back in the bottom of that same inning, tying the game through a sequence that included an automated strike zone system call that got overturned into a walk, followed by a triple that brought the run home. From there, this game turned into exactly the kind of tense, back-and-forth battle you'd expect from two contenders both fighting for postseason positioning. New York's bullpen, working the ninth, actually gave up a solo home run leading off the frame, a nerve-wracking moment that briefly threatened to undo everything Cole had built across his 7 strong innings. But the bullpen buckled down, closing out the door and securing a 5-4 win. And right in the middle of all that late-game tension, George Lombard Jr. delivered again, hitting his second career home run in just his second big league game. Think about the timeline here for a second, because it's genuinely remarkable. This is a 21-year-old who made his major league debut earlier this week, homered in that very first game, and then followed it up with another home run against a genuine Cy Young caliber pitching staff just days later. That's not a hot streak fueled by facing weak competition, that's a rookie producing real, legitimate power production against one of the best teams in the entire sport, in just his second career appearance. If you were looking for confirmation that New York's decision to hand him the everyday shortstop job was the right one, that second home run is about as strong a piece of evidence as you could ask for this early in a career. Let's talk a little more about what made this series so significant beyond just the final scores, because the opponent matters enormously here. Atlanta didn't walk into the Bronx as some middling, forgettable club. They arrived on an 8-game winning streak, by far the hottest team in all of baseball over the weeks leading into this series, a genuine juggernaut that had been steamrolling everyone in its path. Beating a team playing that well isn't just about picking up 2 wins in the standings. It's a genuine statement about where this Yankees roster actually stands heading into the stretch run. This wasn't a get-right series against a rebuilding club looking to sell off pieces at the deadline. This was a direct confrontation with one of the best teams in the National League, and New York didn't just survive it, they dominated the 2 most decisive moments of the series. A walk-off-style extra-innings win and a head-to-head ace showdown. It's also worth pointing out just how different these 2 wins were from each other stylistically, because that variety says something meaningful about this roster's overall identity right now. Friday's win was built on grit, resilience, and a lineup that refused to go quietly even when facing elimination with their final out on the board. Saturday's win was built on pure top-of-the-rotation dominance, Cole simply out-pitching one of the best left-handers in the sport over 7 strong innings. A team that can win both of those types of games in the same weekend, one through sheer stubborn resilience, one through overwhelming individual talent, is a team with real, multiple paths to victory, exactly the kind of versatility that tends to matter enormously once the games start counting even more in October. And let's not overlook the pitching performances from both starters across this series either, because Fried and Cole both delivered exactly the kind of outings a contending team needs from the top of its rotation heading into the stretch run. Fried's emotional return against his former organization could have easily gone sideways under the weight of that occasion, and instead, he delivered arguably his best start in recent weeks. Cole, meanwhile, continues building a genuinely strong case in a Cy Young conversation that already includes his own teammate, giving this Yankees rotation a legitimate 1-2 punch at the very top that few other teams in baseball can currently match. Let's dig a little deeper into that Friday night comeback, because the specific sequence of events makes it even more impressive than a simple box score suggests. Think about the mental toll of watching your team surrender a 2-run lead in the 8th and 9th innings to a lineup that had been steamrolling the entire league for weeks. A lot of teams, especially ones dealing with the kind of offensive inconsistency New York has battled through stretches of this season, mentally check out in exactly that spot, going through the motions in a ninth inning that feels already decided. Instead, Wells delivered under real pressure, Rosario worked a genuinely patient at-bat to extend the inning, and Rice came through with a clutch, high-leverage single against one of the best closers in the entire National League. That's not luck stacking up 3 times in a row, that's a lineup collectively refusing to accept the game was over, even against elite relief pitching on the road against their own crowd. It's also worth spending more time on Mahle's outing specifically, because as impressive as it was statistically, it also tells you something important about the caliber of pitching depth Atlanta has managed to acquire even in the middle of a pennant race. Bringing in a pitcher just days before a start against a genuine playoff contender and getting 6 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts is about as strong a debut as any front office could realistically hope for. It's a reminder that even in defeat, this Atlanta team is stocked with legitimate, high-level talent up and down their roster, which makes New York's ability to still find a way to win both of these games even more impressive by direct comparison. Now let's go even further into that Cole-Sale duel, because a genuine ace versus ace matchup like that one doesn't come around especially often during the middle of an August stretch run. Both of these pitchers have Cy Young hardware to their name. Both of them came into this start pitching at genuinely elite levels, and the fact that Cole was able to separate himself over 7 strong innings against that caliber of competition says a lot about where he stands in this current Cy Young conversation league-wide. It's also worth noting just how deep this Yankees rotation has become this season, with Cole and Schlittler both pitching at genuine award caliber levels simultaneously. Very few teams in either league can currently claim 2 starters performing at that level at the same time, and that kind of top-of-the-rotation strength is exactly the sort of separator that tends to matter enormously once October baseball actually arrives. Let's also spend more time appreciating exactly what George Lombard Jr. has done across these first 2 games of his career, because it's genuinely rare for a prospect to make this kind of immediate impact at this level of competition. Rookies, even highly touted ones, often go through a real adjustment period once they face legitimate, playoff-caliber pitching for the first time, chasing pitches out of the zone, getting overpowered by velocity they simply hadn't seen consistently in the minor leagues. Lombard has shown none of those typical rookie growing pains through his first 2 games. Back-to-back home runs against quality opposition, in just his second career start, is the kind of debut stretch that gets discussed for years if it continues trending in this direction. And it's not purely about the power numbers either. Reports out of these games have continued praising his instincts and composure at shortstop as well, suggesting this isn't a one-dimensional offensive prospect but a genuinely complete, well-rounded talent who looks ready for this level of competition far earlier than most evaluators typically expect from a player this young. There's also real value in thinking about what this series means for New York's playoff positioning more broadly, beyond just the excitement of the individual performances. Every single win against a legitimate contender like Atlanta carries extra weight in the standings, not just for this specific week, but for tiebreaker scenarios and strength of schedule conversations that could matter enormously once the postseason picture starts crystallizing in September. Beating a team playing this well, in this convincing a fashion, sends a real message to the rest of the league about which teams are genuinely built to compete deep into October, and after this weekend, New York has put itself firmly back into that conversation in a way that a quieter series against a lesser opponent simply wouldn't have accomplished. New York has already clinched this series regardless of what happens in the getaway game, having taken the first 2 contests against the best team in baseball heading in. That's a genuinely significant accomplishment on its own. A real signature series win that this roster can point back to as validation heading into the most important stretch of their season. Whether they complete the sweep or Atlanta salvages 1 game to avoid the clean broom, the story of this series has already been written. A struggling at times Yankees offense finding its moments exactly when it mattered most. A pitching staff delivering at the highest level against elite competition, and a rookie shortstop continuing to look like one of the best stories in the entire sport just days into his big league career. There's one more thread worth pulling on before wrapping up this recap, because it ties everything from this weekend together into a bigger picture. New York has dealt with real offensive inconsistency across stretches of this season, the kind of scoring droughts that make fans and analysts alike question whether this roster has enough firepower to compete with the best teams in the league over a full 7-game postseason series. This weekend offered a genuinely encouraging counterpoint to that concern. 2 different games, 2 completely different paths to victory, both against elite competition, both featuring contributions from up and down the roster rather than relying on just 1 or 2 stars to carry the entire load. Wells coming through in a slump. Rosario and Rice combining for the tying and setup hits. McMahon delivering in the clutch. Cole dominating on the mound. And Lombard, the newest face in that lineup, already looking like one of the most dangerous hitters on the entire roster through just his first 2 games. That's the kind of complete, all-hands contribution that tends to define teams capable of real, sustained October success. It's also worth reflecting on how quickly the narrative around this Yankees roster can shift based on results like this one. Just a week ago, plenty of the conversation surrounding this team centered on offensive struggles, on questions about whether the newly acquired trade deadline pieces would actually gel in time to matter, on genuine concern about a roster that had scored more than 3 runs just twice across a 9-game stretch. This weekend flipped that entire conversation on its head. Suddenly the storyline isn't about an offense searching for answers, it's about a complete, well-rounded roster that just took down the hottest team in baseball using every tool available: timely hitting, elite starting pitching, bullpen resilience, and an electrifying young talent playing above his years. Baseball has a way of humbling overreactions in both directions, so it's worth staying appropriately balanced about reading too much into any single weekend. But after a series performance this complete, against competition this good, New York has given its fan base real, tangible reason to believe this roster is exactly what they've been hoping it could become down the stretch. If there's a new update on how this series wraps up, or how Lombard keeps building on this remarkable start to his career, you know exactly where to come back for the full breakdown, straight from the source, no fluff, no filler. This video is created for entertainment purposes. All information shared is based on publicly available reports, team statements, and ongoing developments as of the time of publishing, and details may change as the situation evolves. This content is intended to celebrate and discuss these athletes and organizations respectfully. No disrespect is intended toward any player, coach, or organization mentioned. Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only, based on publicly available reports and ongoing developments. No disrespect is intended toward any individual team or organization mentioned.